Coming up on the Carter Cadence.
Just believing in what you do and sticking to your guns and adjusting and being flexible to your players. And, you know, a community that buys into it as well. So, you know, a lot of things have to happen, and it has, and we're enjoying this ride that we're on.
Hello, I'm Brooks Carter, and welcome to the debut edition, episode 1 of the Carter Cadence, a Northwest Georgia football podcast. This show will be kind of centered around a coaching interview each week, where we'll talk with a current or former head coach from one of our Northwest Georgia football schools. Episode 1 will feature Rockmart head football coach Biff Parson. That will be a fun interview as we'll talk about several different things, including his run that he has been on with the Rockmart Yellow Jackets, winning 8 consecutive region championships. This show will be also featuring a couple of different segments to bookend each of our coaching interviews. It will generally kind of wrap around the coaching interview each week. That will be the centerfold of the show, but we got a couple of fun things that we're going to do each week to bookend those coaching interviews. In the first segment here, in just a few moments, you'll see a weekly player spotlight where we will look at a player, look at his film, break it down, talk about some of the things that they are doing well in that film, and that's going to be fun and exciting to do. Give some promotion to some of the current student athletes playing football in our Northwest Georgia football area. And then to end the show, we're going to take a step back in time as a guy who grew up around Northwest Georgia football. There are so many players that I loved, appreciated, even idolized as a child watching play football in Northwest Georgia. So we're going to take a step back in time, find some old film when we can. I know that can be hard to do, but we're going to look at some old highlights or games or teams or just anything from previous in the past here in Northwest Georgia. So that will be our NWGA Throwback segments, and that is what the show is going to consist of. So stick around. In just a moment, we're going to have our first player spotlight, and that is going to be Gordon Lee, running back, defensive back, athlete, whatever you want to call him. Peyton Groce is going to be our first guy that we're going to break down. So as you can see here on the screen, junior highlights here from Peyton Groce. Starts with a bang here. 99-yard touchdown run in region play against Christian Heritage. This was a really talented Christian Heritage team this year. One thing that really sticks out to me about Peyton Groce, I've seen him play in person on 2 occasions when they were down in Region 6-3A the last 2 years. So the previous year, his sophomore year, and then I saw him in their spring game. His speed is phenomenal. Look at this right here. Runs right past the linebacker. They tried to get him in man coverage with a linebacker. They snuck him out of the backfield, hit him over the top. Dustin Day, the quarterback for Dusty Day, I think. Sorry if I got that wrong. The quarterback drops it in, and he's gone. Just big play potential. All of the first few highlights you've seen here. And here's another one. Kind of a botched handoff a little bit there. This is against North Murray. Breaking tackles, getting in the open field, still spinning. Look at him go here. Some pretty good downfield blocking, but he doesn't necessarily need it. Gets past Hudson Hewlett, who's a guy you'll see me break down in the future here. But he is lightning in a bottle when he gets the ball in the open field. Another one here, pretty good job by the line, still on the edge, but that's all you need. You give him that, and he's gone. Around the edge there. Here's against Christian Heritage again. Pretty good hole up the middle, and once he hits that second level, man, it is lights out. Just really, really good top-end speed. When I saw him in person, it was against Cahola Creek. I am their radio play-by-play guy once again here. I think this is against Chattooga. They've got great athletes, and he just walks off and leaves all of them. But yeah, his speed in person was very impressive when I saw him against Cahola Creek in the spring game last year, and then I saw him in person as a sophomore. This is against, I believe this is against Heritage High School here. I think they won a little Wildcat formation there. Yeah, so they've got him lined up at quarterback, and this is Coach Jared Groce's son, and his dad surely knows how to use him. So you'll see him take some direct snaps at Wildcat. And they do a great job blocking for him. I mean, I think this offensive line knows that we really just got to get enough of a block to get him to the second level. And if he does that, he is a home run hitter, and he could potentially score a touchdown for us at any point in the game. Great out of the backfield. We already saw that earlier. Throw a little swing pass out to him here. Not afraid of contact. Just totally absorbs the contact there as he takes on 2 or 3 tacklers from Christian Heritage. Little wheel right out of the backfield. Over the shoulder catch. Gets his toes down inbounds. He is a special player. He's going to be one of those guys that potentially showing some strength there. He's a guy that is going to be a potential Player of the Year candidate. I know Lawrence has had him on the NWGA watch list for players for the Player of the Year for our small schools, which is single A through triple A. Those awards are only given out to seniors, and he is a rising senior. So he's a guy that I would probably put as a top 10 guy for that award for Player of the Year in the small schools. And I really like this. So we saw all the home run hitting, like how great he is in the open field. But I love seeing him between the tackles. Look at the patience there, making cuts, letting his blocks set up. He really reads the defense well as a ball carrier, and I think that's just as impressive. Almost scored there after just kind of slowly, methodically getting through the defense. I mean, this is several highlights against Chattooga I've seen here. I'd like to see what his numbers were in that game as he ran through their defense, it appears. I mean, this is Chattooga highlight after Chattooga highlight here for Peyton Groce. But yeah, he's a special player, and I'm excited to see what he can do this year. This is our player spotlights for this week's episode, and excited to see what he can do later this year. So when we come back, we will jump into our interview with head football coach from Rockmart, Biff Parson. Stick around, an exciting conversation with him. All right, now we're going to welcome in Rockmart head football coach Biff Parson. And Coach, welcome into the show. How are you doing?
Thanks, Brooks. Thanks for having me. Doing good. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for being one of my first guests on the Carter Cadence here. Coach, kind of just catch me up. How have things gone since the end of the season? You guys got beat out in the semifinals this year, another deep run in the state playoffs this year. Kind of where are we at as we sit here in February?
Yeah, it's just about where we start getting off-season workouts going, and we got several athletes doing multiple sports, which we highly encourage here at Rockmart. With our spring sports kicking up with track and baseball and golf, everything that's going on. But the ones that are not participating, we've got them after school. They're getting 2 workouts a day, and things are going well, and our numbers are high, and they're excited about football.
So taking me back to 2015, you had kind of rebuilt a Banks County team, 0-10 the first year. You got them up to a sub-500 team. Things seemed to be trending in the right direction there, but you decided to leave and take the Rockmart job. What appealed to you about the Rockmart job back in 2015 going into eventually accepting it in 2016?
Yeah, a funny story is, Banks County is where I was born and raised, and my dad was a head coach there from, I believe it was like 78 to 89.
Okay.
And then obviously left and went to Franklin County where I graduated from. But to go back and be the head coach at Banks County, where I grew up, and obviously the kids that I were coaching, my dad had coached their dad, so it was pretty neat, pretty cool, and I understood the challenge. And I'd say this to every young football coach that takes their first job: when you think you arrived and you know the game of football, and you go 0-10, you kind of look at yourself in the mirror and figure out maybe I'm not cut out to do this. But the kids were resilient. We ended up finishing the last 2 years there being 5-5. And yeah, the Rockmart job came open. Now, the back check on that is my wife is from Rockmart. And when I got out of NFL Europe in 2007, Dan Duff was the head football coach here at Rockmart, and he and my dad had coached at Franklin County. My dad was coaching at Villa Rica, so when I was at home, it was one of those, hey, I talked to Dan, would you want to go over and just kind of help out? So I did, and I met my wife. She was graduating at University of West Georgia at the time, and it's one of those set you up, and 10 months later, we got married. So God is good and knew what he was doing. And I would not be where I'm at right now if all that didn't happen. So yeah, that obviously coming back home to our family, to our her mom and dad is obviously rooted in Rockmart. Her granddad was the football coach at Rockmart and I think in the 60s, late 60s, 70s, and ended up being a principal at Rockmart for 21 years. So there's some roots there. It's about who you know, what you know sometimes. And I was fortunate to get this job in 2016.
When you took this job, did you ever foresee what y'all have accomplished there? Rockmart hadn't won a region title since 1988 when you got there. Now you've won 8 in a row. You haven't lost a region game since your first year there. Did you foresee this happening? Did you feel like Rockmart was maybe a sleeping giant?
Yes and no. I think, when you network in the state of Georgia and you kind of hear coaches talk and you kind of do some background and research of, where you're going, what you're getting into, they always have good football players here. And they've had good football coaches. For whatever reason, it just didn't mesh. Things didn't happen. The success that we've had hadn't happened here. Took this job, yeah, I envisioned that, I've always been taught you better gamble on yourself. You better believe in yourself. And so obviously I do that, but we wouldn't be here without great coaches that I have on this staff. I was able to bring several with me, and they've been here for 9 years now, and we don't have a lot of turnover on staff. So it's the people around you. It's your administration that's going to happen, and then obviously the players. The players are playing, and we've got some good Jimmys and Joes and had good Jimmys and Joes. So what I would have said, all those things would have fell in place. 8 straight region championships and whatever number it is that you've won in region play. No, nobody I think will foresee that. I think just believing in what you do and sticking to your guns and adjusting and being flexible to your players, and a community that buys into it as well. So a lot of things have to happen, and it has, and we're enjoying this ride that we're on.
One of the things that stuck out to me the last couple of years is your non-region schedule. Obviously, you're only a 2A program, but y'all have not been afraid to go out and challenge the big boys. You've played Cartersville, obviously the inter-county rival with Cedartown. You played a home-and-home with Dalton in recent years. What's kind of the idea behind playing these 4 5A schools?
Yeah, I think in the last couple of years that we've done that, it's more of where you're at in your program. If we wouldn't as successful, I probably wouldn't do those things. I'm not a very smart guy as it is. But the first couple of years, when you take over a program of where it was at, you're trying to create some confidence. You're trying to create a culture of winning and getting used to win and expectations to winning. And then once we accomplish that, and a lot of schools will probably say the same thing, it's hard to schedule. People don't want to schedule successful programs. When I got here, I didn't want to schedule Cartersville. I didn't want to schedule those guys because it wouldn't be good for us. But on the flip side of that, I feel like we're at a place where, not that I think we can compete with those guys, but it's more of, let's go and play with the big dogs and evaluate our program, evaluate our people. Uh, you know, all those teams that you mentioned has had a long tradition of football and been very consistent of it. And so we wanted to see what they do. Are we headed in the right direction? And you want your kids to get hit in the mouth. You want to see how they respond to adversity. And those things have happened. And I think that helps us in the region play. I think it helps us in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I would definitely say it helps you in the playoffs. It's funny seeing last year y'all and then Calhoun up in 3A, I think started like maybe a combined. I think Calhoun started 1-3, y'all started 0-2, and then they're winning state, y'all are in the semifinals. But if you just look at records, the first couple of weeks, everybody's like, oh, they're both down, whatever. And then you see kind of Calhoun had a similar track record. They played Cartersville as well. I think they played maybe a 5A school, and it really pays off in the long run when you play some of these big dogs like that, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and it's good for our community. I know when Joey was at Cartersville, he would try to get us on schedule. And the history of Rockmart and Cartersville is a long tradition of them playing because of the proximity of our schools. Only about 25 minutes apart. And so, but we were not at a place where we were ready to face those guys.
Yeah.
And not that. I got a lot of respect for Connor and what he does at Cartersville and what type of person he is. One, it's good for our kids to play local. It's good for our communities to play. And again, I want our kids to play the best, just to kind of see where we're at.
Yeah, and historically Cartersville, a two-way program that we'll never see that again. But throughout most of the '80s and '90s and early 2000s, they were also a two-way program as well. So that's where that rivalry is kind of rooted there. But I'm going to ask you a question you probably have been asked quite a bit over the last 5-6 years. We've talked about the accolades, the winning. You've accomplished pretty much everything you can accomplish, minus the state title. What does it take to get over the hump?
That's a good question, and we're trying to figure that out. As a coach, I believe that the locker room has to be the best part of your team. Those kids have to play and want to play for each other and cheer for each other, take the self out. Obviously, the ball's got to bounce the right way. We've been there twice, and I think that when we played Heard County, I don't know if the inexperienced of ever being there, the preparation, because it's a week and a half long, you kind of get out of your normal routine. And, some things I look back at and I go, man, I wish I'd have done it a little different. But, we played them in the regular season and they were missing a couple guys, and, we had success and beat them. And then, you face a team that's got blood in their eyes. It's a different story, especially at that stage in high school football. And then, last year, 2 years ago, we're in there with Pierce, and, unbelievable team that they had. And you go into 3 overtimes. I don't know how much more we could have done in that game. It was a bloodbath. It felt like it lasted 8 hours. Our kids were spent. They gave everything they could. You could look at a couple spots in that game that said, man, what if, we had it on the 1 yard line and snap it over our guy's head, which we hadn't done all year. Things happen, but that's football and that's life. So, we're still searching for it. But I promise you that just the way I've raised and the way I believe is, I don't want to be that coach that is defined by a championship. I want to be a coach that's defined by, am I doing right for these kids in the community that I'm at. And, when they're 20, 30, 40 years old, are they unbelievable husbands and fathers? That's the legacy.
Yeah, certainly so. Coach, before we let you go, I want to ask a couple of just part of what I want to do on the show here is, kind of establish some history, talk about some old stories and stuff. So I'd love to hear kind of what would you regard as your favorite memory from your playing days?
Oh, well, couple things, and I tell these kids all the time, the memories that you have in high school, those are some of the best memories as a football player for me. The bus rides, the growing up and playing with your buddies and your hometown. And it was my senior year. We wasn't very talented, but we ended up playing Carrollton, and I believe it was the second round of the playoffs back then when they had Reggie Brown and that bunch, and got beat by 7, and nobody would have gave us a shot. But the week before was one of those games that you were playing at North Clayton. They got Cap Burdette. They got all these unbelievable athletes, and we're down at halftime by 2 scores, and we come back and win with about 50 something seconds to go. And just if you knew anything about Franklin County, and they hadn't had a lot of success since the 90s, but those were fun times. And then when you get into college, and I went to Liberty University, there's a couple of times where you get hit so hard you swallow your mouthpiece, you get knocked out, 2 concussions in one game. I mean, there's but what we try to preach to these kids is, these coaches that have played the game, it does teach you about life. It prepares you for what life is going to throw you, and how you handle failure, and how do you handle setback, how do you handle success. But I'm super blessed that the good Lord put me in this position to lead young men, and hopefully be an influence on a community. And again, I wouldn't be who I am or in this position here at Rockmart without my coaches and the support of our admin and what they do for us. I mean, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with, and I'm a firm believer of that. And then again, I said that earlier, you got to have some good Jimmys and Joes, and we've had some good football players here at Rockmart.
Yeah, you mentioned North Clayton. I remember when I was in middle school, my eventual high school alma mater, Northwest Whitfield, that was actually our first playoff win in school history against, was DJ Shockley's dad the head coach then
Yes,
when you
sir.
played him?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
so we went down there and won 28-27. We had a surprise onside kick to keep their offense off the field. Coach Mike Fleur was our head coach, and yeah, I was. I guess would that have been Raven Teague, who was Carrollton's head coach at the time then too?
No, it was, Lord, I wish you hadn't asked me that, but I know that Brad Campbell was on staff. Uh, who was their head coach? That was in 96.
Oh, it would have been okay. Okay, I know. It was the guy that was before Coach Teague. So let's see. That would have been Ben Scott.
That's right.
That's right. I've got it locked and loaded here. Well, last thing I was going to ask you was, you mentioned, you want to leave an influence as a coach. Which coach has influenced you the most?
Oh, wow. Well, one, I'd say my dad. My dad did it for 37 years. I can remember when he ever picked up his gym keys, me and my brothers, we were like fighting to get a seat in the truck, right? We were gym rats. We were at the school 24/7. That's just kind of how we were raised. That was our life, and we knew no other. And so I knew at an early age this was what I wanted to do. And county, and my offensive coordinator Keith Bird, and the impact that they had in my life. And then you get recruited by Sam Rutigliano, a legendary coach at Liberty, and the influence that he had. And then Ken Karcher, who came in my last 2 years at Liberty. And, kind of that's where I grew my faith and Lord, and so the impact that he had, and so much football that I learned. Then able to go back and coach for him at Liberty for 4 years. And then, Mike Jones, who was our head coach in NFL Europe when I was on his staff, such a great, godly man that understood the game of football and life. So, I could go on and on, but that's football, right? That's when you're a part of it for so long. We see these kids more than they see their parents a lot of times throughout, June till December. And so, you just want to make sure that you're keeping the main thing with your team and your culture. And winning is important, and winning is an expectation here, but it's not what we want to be defined as. I think we preach character more than, every day is about that. And we want these kids to understand when we're husbands and fathers that's their purpose if they choose to do that.
Coach, thank you for your time. Down the road, I'd love to ask you about what living in Europe was like for a few years. I think that sounds pretty interesting there.
That's a good chapter. That's a good chapter. Absolutely. Would love that. Again, hey, Brooks, I said this earlier, man, what you do for, I know our part of the state, Northwest Georgia, but this thing gets across to the whole state and probably several others. We went down to Macon for a GACA meeting this past weekend, Monday and Tuesday, and the stuff that you put on, they talk about all over the state, South Georgia, and Northeast Georgia. So you guys keep doing what you're doing. It's great for our communities, and we look forward to see your post and all that you do each week and each day. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it. We've had to cap it at 54 teams across 22 counties. We keep getting people trying to expand us more. I'm like, we've got enough schools in our coverage map already. We've got Metro Atlanta trying to get in, and we're like, part of our mission is, we want to give these areas that Atlanta doesn't really reach that much some attention.
That's important. Absolutely. That's important. The small town schools get unnoticed, with all the transfer portals and everything going on with schools. There's still the schools like Rockmart that are playing with homegrown kids. And we're excited about that. And, this is a special place at Rockmart with special people. And there's no other place that I would want to be than at Rockmart, Georgia, being a Yellow Jacket.
Coach, thank you for your time. We'll catch up next time.
Thanks, Brooks.
Welcome back into the Carter Cadence. Getting ready to wrap up episode 1 here. And this week we're going to take a look back at one of my all-time favorite Northwest Georgia football players. This is a guy that I grew up watching in person. He started for about 3 years at quarterback at Northwest Whitfield for the Bruins. Caleb Callahan, a class of 2005, went on to play at Troy for a little while, is the only, or was at the time, the only all-state quarterback to ever play at Northwest Whitfield, and this guy was an absolute warrior. Let's roll the tape. So this is some old high school film that I was able to digitize. He had an absolute cannon arm. That is Corbin Albertson, who was another great player on that team making the catch there. True dual threat guy. Northwest mostly ran a wing tee back in the day by head football coach Mike Fleur. Did a lot with the play action game. This is against Cartersville, who was ranked in the top 5 in the state in their classification. Northwest wound up upsetting them in this game. I think 14-3 was the final. But Caleb he's what you would call a football player that just happened to play quarterback. Dude threw the football. He's, I don't know if you ever heard old stories about Brett Favre, like breaking his receiver's fingers because of how hard he threw the football. That's kind of the stories that I used to hear about Caleb Callahan. You see him there, not afraid of contact. He was not a guy that was going to slide. He was going to run. He was going to try to run you over before he did anything else. As he throws a pass out to Tyler Johnson, was the running back there for Northwest Whitfield. But you see him fitted in there. I mean, he put some steam on just about every pass he was going to throw. Throws a touchdown there. This is against Woodland. But you see him running the option here into the open field. So shows some pretty good speed. Now scrambling out here into the open field. Pretty good block downfield. And you see the keeper here. Ball fake on the pitch. That was a specialty of his. He got so many guys on the fake pitches here. Gets another one here. Cuts underneath the defense, takes off, scores a 50-yard touchdown on the ground. He was the catalyst for this offense as the guy who really made it tick. This is now against Paulding County, throwing it over the middle. They would occasionally go shotgun, but I mean, it was a lot of his stuff was that just three-step drop. Look at that pass right there, right into the end zone. Throws it right in front of a safety to score a touchdown there. Yeah, you see, he likes to keep another fake pitch there where he got a guy, little midline read down on the goal line. He was unbelievable at the midline read down on the goal line running that old wing tee offense. And he would frequently, another ball fake there, frequently get guys down the goal line. He was money. Most of his rushing touchdowns actually came probably within 5 yards of the end zone. Little scramble drill here. Takes off, makes a man miss in the open field. This one's against Ringgold here, making guys miss. Gets upfield for about a 30-yard gain. A little throwback to the fullback here in the end zone. Little ball fake, out and up. Finds the guy there, takes off down the left side here on a scramble. I mean, it's really, I think his game would translate really well to today's game. You know, a lot of these guys that were really good wing tee quarterbacks, as he finds Corbin Albertson again for a long touchdown pass. A lot of these guys that were really good dual threat wing tee quarterbacks back then, you know, Caleb probably didn't throw the football nearly as much as maybe he would have wanted. They had an unbelievable offensive line. This is against Dalton here. This was the last time that Northwest Whitfield actually beat Dalton prior to this past season. It had been 20 years since Northwest had beat Dalton, and this was the last time was in 2004. But, you know, Caleb's game really would have translated exceptionally well to modern day offenses. You know, he probably only threw the ball maybe tops 15, 20 times a game. And that might, like, I would say probably most of the time he only threw it 10 to 15 times a game. You see the effort there, diving for the pylon. You know, if he was in a modern offense where he threw the ball maybe 25, 30 times a game, had some of those, you know, zone options and stuff out of the shotgun a little more, in kind of the more modern conventional spread offenses instead of running the wing tee. I mean, this guy really could have put up some massive numbers, and he put up some pretty good numbers. You see him breaking a tackle there in the open field. Camera guy's got to catch up with it a little bit there, but this is against Murray County. Bill Napier, Murray County teams. This is against LFO. This is one of the best games that I have ever seen in high school football. This was for the sub-region championship at the time. LFO was 9-0. Northwest Whitfield was 8-1. The winner won the sub-region championship and got home field advantage in the playoffs. Great open field move there by Tyler Johnson to take that one in for a touchdown. This is an exciting football game. You see Caleb keeping it down here on the goal line again. Look at that. Going John Elway, almost gets helicopter, dives for the end zone. Just an absolute warrior under center, man. I've used that word a couple of times to describe him, but that's just how he was. He was going to do whatever it took to win the football game. So we've got about a minute left on tape here. Throws it over the middle. See, they threw the ball, running that wing tee. They threw the ball to their running backs quite a bit. So it throws it down, gets it inside the goal line here for 1st and goal, then throws it out. I believe this was the tying score that set things up to go to overtime. They wound up losing by a missed extra point in overtime. This is on the road at North Clayton. You actually heard me reference this last segment talking to Biff Parson. This was the first playoff win from Northwest Whitfield in school history. They won 28-27. They came from behind in the 4th quarter, scored twice, recovered 2 onside kicks, and beats a 10-0 top 10 ranked North Clayton team that was led by Coach Shockley. DJ Shockley's dad was actually the head coach. Another little midline read, gets in there, and that's going to be it. That was Caleb Callahan, one of my all-time favorite players. Since this is my show, I kind of wanted to start with something fun, a little more personal. A guy I grew up watching as a kid in Whitfield County. That is going to do it for episode 1 of the Carter Cadence. I hope you have enjoyed today's show. You will be able to find the show each week on our YouTube channel. That's my YouTube channel at Brooks Carter Media, and this will be available wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes. You can find it at the Carter Cadence. So thank you for tuning in, guys. I look forward to you viewing and listening to the show as we continue to grow this thing. Coming up on next week's show, we will have Fannin County head coach Chad Cheatham, and then after that we've got Bowden head football coach Rich Finley, just to give you an idea of who's going to be coming up on the next couple of episodes. So be sure to continue to tune in and listen and subscribe, follow, all that good stuff so you get notified when new episodes come out. Thanks for tuning in, guys.